Let's get on the road and let's pick up this dirt bike. So as you guys can see right behind me there, we got the bike. 2019 KTM 250SX-F. Obviously this is the chassis. As far as I can tell at a glance, we have everything. So a little bit into why I bought this bike. So again, this is a 2019 KTM 250SX-F. Bought it for $2,000 off Facebook Marketplace. And honestly, this bike made a lot of sense for me to buy. I bought it in the condition that it is in right now, where obviously there's no motor in the bike, it's not running. I know the engine's gonna need some time and money into it. But this bike made sense for me to buy because I really do enjoy working on dirt bikes. Obviously, I can bring you guys content with fixing up dirt bikes. I can learn something new because to this point, I've honestly mostly worked on Japanese bikes and a lot of two-strokes and some four-stroke work, easier stuff like top end, stuff like that. But I really haven't dove too deep into a KTM, let alone a KTM four-stroke. And I'm also looking forward to bringing you guys through the whole process as well, so you guys can learn with me. I love to spread knowledge, love to help people repair their own dirt bikes as well. I don't plan on just flipping this bike, so buying it, putting the least amount of money I can into it, and then selling it right away. Because a lot of times when you flip dirt bikes, it can lead to some questionable work being done in order to save money. And I personally believe if you're gonna work on a dirt bike like this, you need to do everything right, because at the end of the day, someone's life, if not your own life, can depend on it. The way I see it, when you're flying through the air on a dirt bike, you want your motor to be in tip-top shape. You don't want to be going through the air hoping your motor doesn't lock up, because that could lead to some very, very serious injuries when you're out there. Our sport is dangerous enough already, motocross, so you know, cutting corners just to save money is just something, in my opinion, that's just really dumb to do. So I'm gonna go through this motor completely. I know it's had a failure in it. Again, the top end, cylinder head, you know, the cams. Basically, from what I can tell, they seized in the head based off of what the previous owner was describing to me. When the bike started to kind of lock up, engine didn't want to turn over freely, started to squeak, and that's just the cams starting to bind up in the cylinder head because there was no oil running through this thing. And I'll be diving into that as well, the issues that these KTMs have. I wouldn't call it a common issue, but it's an issue that a lot of KTM owners have had with some of these four-strokes, is the plastic oil pump gears. So I'm going to be making a video just dedicated to that issue as well, because obviously that's what bit this bike and that's why it's no longer running anymore. Now this bike made sense for me to buy because I know that I can do all the work that needs to be done on this bike. I've been working on dirt bikes for many, many years, and I'm completely confident in my ability to properly repair this bike. Now this bike may not make sense for someone who really doesn't know how to get their hands dirty, who's never really worked on a dirt bike. Buying a blown up bike for $2,000 probably wouldn't make much sense in that situation, because no matter what, you're gonna have to sink some labor into it, sink some parts money into it, and it just wouldn't make sense to buy this bike and pay someone else to fix it, because that would be very expensive. At that point, it would just make more sense to buy a good used running bike. But for me, since I can do all the work on it myself and I'm not paying myself per hour, this bike's gonna be just fine. And again, it is completely possible that we're gonna run into issues that would technically like total the bike, or there could be a situation where we end up putting more money into the bike than it would be technically worth. But again, I'm completely prepared for all that, guys, because the main goal with this bike is to bring you guys along with fixing it so you guys can learn something new, so I can learn something new, because again, I haven't worked that much on KTM, so I'm really looking forward to learning a lot with this bike and just building a motor, having a lot of fun through the whole process, and bringing you guys along as well. I gotta say though, for $2,000, we honestly got really lucky. We got a lot of stuff with this bike. I'll dive into more of that stuff later, but I mean, just looking at the bike itself, it's not in that bad condition, as you guys can see behind me. You know what, let's bring you guys a little closer. So first thing when I inspect a dirt bike is just looking at the wheels, looking for bends, any crazy excessive amount of scratches. The front wheel looks pretty good. Roll over here on my rolly cart. If we look at the back, you guys can see this silver line. This is normal, this happens on dirt bikes. If I'm correct, I believe this is from a low tire pressure type of situation, I think. Don't quote me on that. But I've seen that on very, very, very many dirt bikes. That's completely normal. And you can actually see my 125 has a very similar, although not as excessive, kind of silver line going around the rear wheel. I've seen that a bunch. Again, I really think it's due to like running on flat or really low tire pressure. I believe that's what causes it, but don't quote me on that. But yeah, overall, the rims don't have any bends in it. This one does have a couple loose spokes. I'm just tapping on it, like here you guys can see. This one actually wiggles, but that's just more of a neglected maintenance type of thing. That's something that we can fix. There's no broken spokes or anything, so we can just make sure all the spokes are tight and we'd probably be good. I was inspecting the brakes. Brakes look good. There's no little ledge here, so when I run my finger across the contact surface for the brake pad and just the mounting basically for the rotor to the hub, there's no lines, there's no like little grooves to where the brake pad surface has worn more excessively. So rotors look good, brake pad, as you guys can see, plenty of meat on there, so we're not going to need to touch the brakes. Probably going to just give it some fresh fluid though and just check over the seals, make sure all the seals are good. All of our suspension looks good, no major leaks or anything. Now everything in terms of cooling system, in terms of the fuel system, I really don't know. That's a big unknown because obviously the engine's out of the bike, so we can't test any of that. So if there's anything going wrong there, that's just something we're gonna find out there when we put the motor back in the bike. But overall, the whole chassis of the bike seems like a really just decent, fair condition chassis. There's nothing extremely crazy wrong. This bike has some nice parts on it too. Has some ARC levers, ODI bars. We even got a little carbon fiber disc guard here for our front rotor. Got the Brembo brakes. So yeah, these KTMs come with some pretty nice parts. Now, of course, the carbon there and those levers and the bars aren't factory from KTM, but those brakes are. And yeah, this bike has some pretty nice parts on it. Has a skid plate as well. Overall, this isn't a bad example. Not a bad bike. Also, we got a ton of extra parts. Got some coolant. Got some just miscellaneous parts for the bike in there as well. And that's pretty cool. So as you guys can see, in terms of the chassis, we're looking pretty good. I don't think we're gonna have to order any parts right off the bat, just specifically for the chassis on the bike. Obviously with the engine, it's a different story. So I'm actually gonna start tearing into this cylinder head. I'm gonna tear the cylinder head all the way down so we can get an even better look at all the components and see what we need to order up and replace.